6 o'clock by my watch here, and I know the village board has a meeting in this same space at 7 o'clock, so let's get underway. Welcome, everyone. It's Monday, December 19th, 2022, and this is the Plan Commission meeting for the Village of Morton, Illinois. First order of duty is roll call.
Guile.
Here.
Neff.
Here.
Ritterbusch.
Here.
Keach. Absent. Zobrist.
Here.
Opperly.
Here.
Yordi.
Here.
DeWeese.
Here.
We have quorum.
Excellent. Okay, next is approval of minutes for the regular meeting November 28th, 2022. So any comments or corrections from the commission?
I'll make a motion to approve minutes.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed the same. Approved.
Excellent. All right, so we'll move into our public hearing portion of our meeting. And before we do this, I think our council has something to say.
Thank you. Public hearings are being held tonight pursuant to published notice. Any person wishing to make a comment to the Plan Commission will be afforded an opportunity to do so and will give their testimony under oath or affirmation. No member of the public may address the commission or cross-examine a testifying witness unless and until recognized by the chair. Any person living within 250 feet of a property at issue wishing to cross-examine a testifying witness may be afforded an opportunity to do so at the discretion of our chair on matters germane to the issues before the Plan Commission. At the conclusion of the public hearing, the Plan Commission will make a recommendation to the Village Board. The Plan Commission makes recommendations only. The Village Board is responsible for taking final action on these matters. Finally, we have one matter on for our hearing agenda tonight that was before the board last time. That's petition number 2208ZA. Any testimony offered during the prior proceeding regarding that case is of record. It's a part of our transcript, and it does not need to be repeated into the record tonight. That record is a persistent or continuing document, so what will be presented to the board will reflect both testimony last time and any deliberation or discussion this time. I'd also tender that the public hearing on that portion essentially closed last time, and it was to the board level for debate. Once the case reaches a board level for debate and our chair announces that a case is closed, that represents the end of the public's opportunity from your seat to offer testimony into the proceeding. It's at that point that only the Plan Commission can have discussion leading to a vote on the case. Thank you.
Thank you. First up is that petition number 2208ZA. I'll read it. Subject property is located at 316 South Main Street. Petition has been filed requesting a zoning change from B2 to B3. Would anybody like to speak on this issue? New comment on behalf of the petitioner or the petitioner themselves? Any public? Okay, anything on the table? Any commission comments, questions?
If I may suggest, Your Honor, it appeared to be the will of the Plan Commission at the last hearing to consider petition number 2208ZA somewhat in connection with or resolve a request on that matter contemporaneously with resolving the third item on the petition or the public hearing section. Mm-hmm. So if it were to be the will of the chair, you could either delay action on case 2208ZA until opportunity for public comment and discussion on the ordinance item, or move the ordinance item up to enable both items to be discussed contemporaneously if that was the will of the board. Commission, I should say.
Sounds good to me. They are linked.
Mm-hmm. Why don't we move the ordinance up?
Yep. Okay. Cool. I didn't know that could be done. So I'll move down to skip down to the an ordinance making amendments to Title 10 of the Morton Municipal Code regarding dance, music, and art studios in the B2 zoning district. You should have gotten a packet on this. Page 3 in that packet added the dance, music, and art studios in the definitions, and then page 16 added the same to the allowable special uses in B2. Should ask for public comment first.
That would be appropriate.
All right, so is anybody wanting to comment? If so, you need to be sworn in. Okay. All right, well, Kara, having initiated this particular amendment, did you want to open up the comments?
Obviously, last month, we heard quite a bit of comment, public comment, and it was nice to see all the passion regarding around dance. There were also, there's a history of dance on Jefferson having some inconveniences, we'll call it, with traffic flow and parking. I think Gina Jeffries from State Farm mentioned that, you know, she had left work and came back and there was no parking available. And I think one thing that we need to be careful of is that we are not placing a parking burden onto area businesses. The other thing that was mentioned quite often was the fact that the location on Main Street would be more suitable, less dangerous maybe than the location on Jefferson. So I think there's an acknowledgement that that location on Jefferson is a little bit dangerous as far as kids getting dropped off and whatnot. And that location is also B2. So because of that, I really feel like the most appropriate place for this is in special use. And that, I believe, is correct. That would mean that would come before the board so we could review parking and drop-off procedures before any of these types of locations would be permitted in the B2 area.
Yeah, that is correct. If you make it a special use, you have the opportunity to place conditions on the award of the special use. Conditions have to be reasonably related to criteria set forth in your code, and things like parking parking as one example would be a perfectly acceptable condition to impose on an individual case. So yeah, your summary is legally correct in terms of what the procedure would be if this amendment were to be adopted.
Okay. And so that's where we have placed it into the special use, so it is not in permitted use. So it wouldn't be just you could open up a dance, music, or art studio into any B2 location. It would still have to come across the board for parking and anything else that we could put under the special use considerations.
One comment just on the ordinance. It appears when you look at your draft of the ordinance as if there's a change also being made regarding landscape screening. We use a code drafting software that's relatively new to the village that overall makes our job easier. For whatever reason, that code drafting software makes that language appear to be a change. It's not in fact a change. So any indication in the ordinance that it's changing landscape screening requirements is not correct. Those have been in the code for some time, and they just for some reason appear in your copy as if I was changing those when I drafted this.
That was the green text on the last page.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments?
I had the opportunity to look at, it was in our packet at the last meeting. I did a brief overview of all the B2 businesses and looked at that and said, where would dance, what percentage of dance would fit into B2? It was a brief overview of the B2 district. And obviously this is one case, but we need, as a plan commission, need to look ahead at other cases too, meaning dance and B2. I believe that dance, there are a handful of properties that dance will work in the B2 district. I think it would be something different if there was only one or two possible buildings or businesses that would permit that. But I believe, I couldn't tell you the percent, but I believe that special use B2 is where this needs to be. I think it's a good recommendation, and I would agree with that dance should be B2 special use. In my research in special use, that does trigger site plan review. To my understanding, upon site plan review, that goes to village staff to review traffic flow. Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, traffic flow, parking, other requirements, I should say. So I think that's another reason why this fits very well as a special use, because that will go to site plan review from there on out. So I would say that I support this ordinance, putting dance in B2 and as a special use. I support that.
Any other comments? Hearing none, do we have any motions?
So moved.
I'm sorry, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
A second.
Second.
Neff.
Yes.
Opperly.
Yes.
Ritterbusch.
Yes.
Guile.
Yes.
Deweese.
Yes.
Zobrist.
Yes.
Yordi.
Yes.
Favorable recommendation.
All right, shall we go back up to petition number 2208, ZA, the original?
If I may interject, so Pat, could you clarify that what this means, that if this goes to the village board and it is approved by the village board,
Sure.
that still means a special use needs to be applied for?
Sure. Yeah, I can speak to that process. So first, the petition 2208ZA remains outstanding, and I agree with Mr. Chairman's position that we need to move to that next for action. Whether that's favorable or unfavorable, that recommendation will also pass through to the village board. If the village board, if the village board were to approve the zoning amendment, it would negate the need for further action from the people pursuing the zoning change for 316 South Main. If there's a negative recommendation or negative board, I should say, if the board votes down a rezoning for 316 South Main, but the board approves the ordinance making dance studios a special use in B2, then Amy or Ann or Amy and Ann together could apply for a special use that would, depending on the timing of their application, come to you for a subsequent meeting, either in January or February. It would probably be February, just because the board's not going to be able to vote tonight because they're not going to have the transcript of what you do tonight. So that'd put it to the first meeting in January for board action. So either January or February, they'd have the opportunity to come back on a petition for special use, where we'd have a hearing as to whether 316 South Main Street should receive a special use for the dance, music, and art studio. You'd make a recommendation, and that'd go to the village board for their next meeting. As has been the case, to the extent enforcement is something you seek perspective on, it has been persistently the case that while request or pending enforcement is told, that's kind of the mentality from a code enforcement standpoint. So if there's an application for a special use pending, there wouldn't be enforcement of a zoning violation until that case is fully resolved. So,
Thank you.
yep.
Appreciate it. All right, so I already previously opened it up to the public, so any other comment on petition number 2208ZA from the commission? All right, would somebody like to?
I'll make a motion to approve petition number 2208 ZA.
Second.
Second, thank you.
Just for clarity, this would be to approve a change of zoning from B2 to B3.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yep.
Ready for roll? Neff.
No.
Opperly.
No.
Ritterbusch.
No.
Guile.
No.
Deweese.
No.
Zobrist.
No.
Yordi.
No.
Does not get a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. All right. Last item on the docket tonight, petition number 2209 SP. Subject property is located at 3900 West Jackson Street. Petition has been filed requesting a zoning change from B3 with a special use permit for a Mason contractor's office warehouse with outdoor storage of materials related to that use, to B3 with a special use to include outdoor storage of motorhomes, boats, trailers, and operable vehicles. Would anyone from the public like to speak? Okay, you need to be sworn in or affirmed.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you about to give will be the truth, the whole truth?
So please give us your name and where
Mike
you live.
Zimmerman. I am the owner of 3900 West Jackson.
Thank you, sir. Is that enough?
Yeah, he's identified himself.
I think everybody has the packet that was sent out and everything. I'll go over it real brief, that I bought the property in '95 and built my building in '95 and started my business there, or moved my business there at that time. Then in 2000, I moved to a larger location and continued to rent the building out then to multiple different outfits, but the main one was a FedEx contractor. And in that time that he had it, up till June of this last year, he had 4 to 6 trucks parked there. And then in 2000, when I did move out, I had a few friends that said, hey, can we park our trailer there? And I thought, yeah, sure. You know, I figured I had a special use permit for outdoor storage. And so for that time till 2018, when I started making plans to retire, the place had gotten pretty overgrown and stuff. There's still some masonry equipment and material there. So 2018, I got some prices to put 3 more storage units. The original plot plan for that piece of property had 4 storage unit buildings on it, and I built one in 98, and didn't ever build the other 3, basically because I didn't have the time running the company. I was too busy. But I got prices in 2018, and then conferring with the city and land improvements and the cost of the storage units. I'm 70 almost now, so I would not have by the time I put $300-some thousand investment in the buildings, I wouldn't get the return out of the money. So I fell back to the outdoor storage. So I just start clearing the ground and putting the base in and putting trailers in there. And 2020, I think I put my fence up 260 feet along the property line there. And this last year, I completed cleaning up some masonry stuff and getting rid of the brush and the trees that were the last of along the Victor Street. And I've got temporary fence up now. In the spring, I'm going to put the permanent fence up, complete that, and then complete the cleaning up the south end of the property, and then plant arborvitaes along Victor Street for a screen. And I think that's all in the packet.
Any questions? All right, thank you, sir.
Wait, one more question, Mike. Is there existing security lighting, or will you be expanding that if you expand your lot, or how would you do that?
What I have on the existing building out there, the storage unit is motion detector security lights. They stay on for like 3 minutes, but they come on, there's 3 on the 2 sides and then 1 on each end. So they stay on for about 3 minutes, and they only shine out maybe from here to that wall. You know, the main building has always had lights on it, but
So all the lighting that's there now is on buildings?
Yes.
There's no pole lighting?
no, I had one neighbor ask me to put a pole light up though, but she says it's dark at her house. So I said, well, that's not in the plans. And I did go around the connecting owners, and I think that's in your packet too. I talked to 5 of them personally and then called the rest, and all but one was very happy and knew what I was doing. Most of them knew what I was already doing. because I've known him for a number of years.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else? Any other public comment? Okay, so I'll close our public comment. Brad, did you have anything you wanted to add from the village?
If I would, as you review this, I would recommend, if you give a favorable recommendation for the special use, I would say that you need to be very specific with the items that need to be addressed, which would include exactly what's going to be stored outside, the exact landscape screening that will be provided, and also the lighting. The lighting by ordinance is not supposed to spill out past his property line. Now that will also be vetted out in site plan review because this is a special use which triggers that. So we will address stormwater, pavement setbacks, other items that site plan review will trigger. But I think the more specific we can be on those requirements, that makes it easier for staff to enforce in the future, to make sure that we're a good neighbor to the surrounding properties.
Thank you, Brad.
So Brad, you would say that on a special use, the exact wording here, motorhomes, boats, trailers, and other operable vehicles.
Yes, and
That-
that was the application, exactly how
Yes.
Mr. Zimmerman worded on the application. So that's what I would recommend as being the only items that can be stored outside.
So inoperable vehicles is kind of a loose.
So an operable vehicle not only has to be able to run, it has to be licensed.
Okay.
It has to have current license.
So the way this is worded, he cannot park a tractor.
I would interpret that as no. Is that correct, Pat? I would.
Yeah, I would not interpret a tractor to be a part of the scope of that wording.
So I guess I would ask Mike, are you okay with how this is wrote then?
Well, I would probably, if I got that option right now, to add a tractor on there, because I mean, I do have a tractor, you know, I've sold it, so I mean, I might be getting a tractor again.
And I just threw that out there,
Yeah,
Mike.
no,
I
I mean,
just,
it's-
I'm
Right,
kind
sure.
of off your comment,
Sure.
being more, specific.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And right now, I've got a guy that has an airplane cockpit parked there. He's making a flight simulator out of it. So I'm not sure how that would, I mean, that's probably a chance of 1 in 100 years to ever have somebody move up. It's a pretty good sized cockpit. But I mean, he's got it all wrapped up and he works on it in good weather, so I'm not sure if that would be a special language.
I mean,
I've expected there for over a year, the way it sounds, but.
I mean, the concern I would have is that now we become open air storage, which becomes a junkyard, wrecking yard. I'm not saying Mr. Zimmerman's doing that. That's not what I'm saying. But if Mr. Zimmerman then sells the property, the next person comes in, if we're not specific on what's can be stored there, then that's the possibilities that can happen.
Is it your intent, so I went out and looked at it, and the fencing that is like 6-foot fencing along that there, but there aren't slats in the fencing. Is it your intention to put slats in the fencing, or to just leave it as is?
That's where that whole row, about 340 some feet, is going to have arborvitae about 4 foot apart. So that'll be a natural screen.
Okay, yeah, so no slats in the chain link, just the arborvitae. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I could do the slats and not the arborvitae and still give you the screening, but I think arborvitae are going to look a lot nicer, and they're going to get taller than the slats. The slats only go up 6 foot in the fence, and some of the trailers, or most of the trailers, are over 6 foot tall.
Yeah.
So the neighbor across the street, he's already planted some arborvitae, and he came over, talked to me, and he said, hey, I think you're doing a great job cleaning up and stuff. I got this letter from the city. And I said, well, this is what I'm going to do. That's great. You know, and he had already planted arborvitae along his property. And, I think they're only 4 or 5 years old and they're already about 8 foot tall. So that's my long-term plan, is to get those plants yet this year, next year, and clean it up and everything, so. It'll be protected.
Okay, thank you. So I guess I'd ask the same question to the commission, what you're comfortable with, because we'll have, go into Brad's comment, we'll need to be specific, whether we want just arborvitae or something more, so.
Myself, I'm comfortable with the arborvitae. Hearing the 4-foot spacing, I'm good with that as well, knowing the growth rate and the size that those would go to. To your point of slats, that would appease the code as it's written as a visual screen. I think, however, the arborvitae is going to provide a more natural and more appealing screen for the neighbors next door. So I would tend to keep the arborvitaes in and go that route. I think it's going to be an end product that everyone will be happy with rather than the slats.
I would agree with that.
So how do we go about adding the conditions? Do we need to spell it out right now?
That would need to be included in the motion.
Okay.
So if we're concerned about it being a junkyard, can we add the exclusion that inoperable vehicles are prohibited? And that would satisfy the junkyard concern that you were speaking of.
Well, I mean, I would defer to Pat, but I would interpret it, if it's not allowed, then anything else is not allowed,
Right.
would be my interpretation. Is that correct, Pat?
So, I mean, we have a series of somewhat specific provisions on junkyards and automotive salvage facilities that exist in our code already, that probably would be sufficient to prevent that possibility. However, I concur with Brad's point that specificity in the motion is necessary so that, staff has an understanding both now and in the future in terms of the bounds of what's permitted and what's not, as well as a petitioner. So I think I would concur with Brad's thoughts that a motion explicitly stating what's permitted by implication or even expression excludes all else. And there's different ways I think you can go about, how to address that in terms of whether you want to expand the scope of the list. But I would agree that a specific motion stating these specific outdoor storage that's permitted would be appropriate. You could also, you could also include in the motion, if you so desired, in response to the, I honestly don't, the airplane cockpit is an interesting conundrum, if only because, to Mr. Zimmerman's point, that would probably never recur. You could, I suppose include, that's a tough one to address. I'm not sure it's prudent to include that specifically, not probably desiring that to recur, and also being a very improbable scenario. You could factor in some form of grandfathering, anything that's on the property on the date of the award of the special use that doesn't fit within your confines has a year or some defined period to be removed, or for that use to discontinue. But
So are you suggesting that we could, yeah, that's, this gets into the nitty gritty there. Put a term limit on it, like a.
I'm
You can store.
I'm primarily
You can
thinking
store a cockpit until.
there's not a great answer for that one.
Yeah.
Mr. Zimmerman's asking to be recognized. You're not required to recognize him, but you can.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I would be fine with that, because I don't like, if you wanted to do a time limit, like say, give him 2 years, and I would not ever allow somebody to bring a cockpit in again. If that would help clean up this.
Seems very odd, but if it moves us along, I guess, we do have to put some type, I think we have to put some type of time frame on the improvements that Mr. Zimmerman's doing, planting arborvitae, so that, you know, I don't know, next spring or, you know.
Well, you also probably need to put maintaining a arborvitae tree line along the Victor Street
Is there any,
edge.
is there anything currently, like, there's landscape requirements already, you know, for other, and is there maintenance terminology in there where they can't just plant it once and let it die, or?
I mean, as applied to this particular case, this is a peculiar property because where this property abuts property you would consider residential is outside the village limits. So your normal landscape screening requirements that exist between an industrially zoned property and residentially zoned property don't apply because we don't recognize any zoning classification because that property is not within the village. Some of our zoning requirements have, most of our landscape screening requirements don't have substantial language about a duty to maintain. So I do think it would be appropriate in your motion to indicate that that must be installed and maintained, you know, for the duration of use.
Mr. Chairman, so if the Plan Commission is agreeable to the plan that Mr. Zimmerman proposed with the arborvitaes, I would recommend, or I think it might be a good idea, if you're going to make the recommendation to approve that plan and then put verbiage that the plan needs to be maintained as such.
Okay.
I think that would cover.
And then just adding farming equipment, is that appropriate to cover tractors, or is that too broad?
It's very broad.
It's very broad. Is it too broad? And then what?
Yeah, I don't think we want to
Farm.
open it up to farm equipment in general, because then you start getting into implements and everything else that could be stored there. I think you're starting to run down a rabbit hole.
Okay. So farming machine, tractors?
I guess, could we say operable vehicles, inoperable vehicles, not, I would say, applicable to this situation? If we're worried about, you know, storing, you know, the quote-unquote junkyard.
So, I mean, we could add the word, this is probably not what you're getting at, but going back to the negative, you know, not wanting it to make it negative, the only operable vehicles. And then the question was, do you add equipment? I mean, you said farm, but I guess, you know, you could say operable equipment. I mean, that gives them a real lot of latitude there, but do we want to go there? I mean, you know, the fears is a junkyard, right? The fears that it would become a junkyard. Well, if we put some kind of language on it, you know, that says operable, then that gives him lots of latitude, but yet, I don't know if that's protective enough. But
Mr. Chairman, I think by opening it up and making more vague goes away from
right.
what Mr. Marks requested on a little bit more specificity.
Yeah, it does. All right.
So I think I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve what's before us, with also the planting requirement of the arborvitaes be 4 foot on center to be done in the spring of 2023. And then any non-compliant vehicles be given a 36-month window to become compliant or either be removed from the property, and that the owner would be allowed to store a tractor on the premise.
Do we need to state also, Mike, you said that temporary fence, but you're going to put a permanent fence. So I think for clarity, we'd want to say that the completion of a permanent fence would also
Sure.
take place next year.
I guess that was my understanding, but yes, correct.
And lighting, just to throw that in on that too, that lighting, it'll be in site plan review, but would be adjusted or whatever, that it's not escaping the property and spilling onto surrounding owners' land or whatever, but I guess that's going to be in site plan review anyway, so you're going to have to address that.
I think, to me, that's already taken care of, or would be by that process, and that would, unless Brad really thinks we should be redundant like that, I think it's already going to be
It is a
taken care
part of site plan review, yes. I do feel like the lighting is a concern right now, though, so, I mean, that process will, as we vet through the site plan review, I don't think we need to add it because it is already part of the site plan review.
And even apart from site plan review, your code is actually very restrictive on lighting. It actually prohibits spillage off the property at all. So, even if you were not triggering site plan review, that would be a code violation if there's spillage off the property.
And currently, yeah, the C2, there is no screen on the west side of that property to prevent that light from spilling over, which in this, there would be.
Just two questions of clarification, maybe one. The fencing and the landscape screening, is that just on the Victor Street side? Is that all the way around? I'm not sure I heard.
I guess my interpretation is I'm going to view this as if those residents were Morton residents, so I'm viewing it as we need to provide screening against a residential street, so I would do the Victor side. No other adjacent properties to them are residential, so I would be comfortable with not providing that screening on those sides.
And I take it you're capturing this.
Yeah, if I may, before, and I'm not sure there's been a second, but I want to read back what I took down as the conditions of the award of the special use. Those conditions be first, that the owner be required to install and maintain arborvitae spaced 4 feet apart on the Victor Street side of the property in the spring of 2023 and complete permanent fencing in that same area in that same time frame. Special use would be approved for outdoor storage of only operable vehicles, boats, trailers, motorhomes, and boats, trailers, motorhomes. Equipment is not included. Any items that are presently stored in the outdoor portion of the property that are beyond the scope of the prior list must be removed within 36 months of the award of the special use. And a property owner would be allowed to store one tractor the owner would be able to store one of the owner's tractors on the property. Is that, Mr.?
Is that capturing?
It captures what I think that's a good start to the debate and the discussion that we're having.
Sure, go ahead.
I'm a one-man operation, and first off, I gotta finish the grading and stuff like that on the fence, get the fence in, and then if I could have till the fall or late summer for planting the arborvitae, because that would be the last project. I might get it done earlier, but
Anybody opposed?
I'm not opposed to that, no.
Okay. Let's give a month instead of end of the summer. How about August? Is August? Yeah, there you go.
August 1st?
Yep, let's do it.
Ground's not frozen yet, Mike, you can get started.
I don't know.
Better do it before Thursday.
Yeah, before Thursday.
Do we need to reread it, or do we all feel comfortable with it? All right. Do we have a motion to approve?
We need a second, I think. Nathan
I'll
made that
second.
motion.
We already got it. Yeah. Great. Okay.
Second by Zobrist. Got it. Knapp,
Yes.
Guile,
Yes.
Ritterbusch,
Yes.
Opperly,
Yes.
DeWeese,
Yes.
Zobrist.
Yes.
Yordi.
Yes.
Favorable recommendation.
Thank you, Brad. Okay, that ends the public hearing portion of the meeting. Brad, is there any other business?
I have nothing tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, shall we vote to adjourn? Somebody like the motion?
So move to adjourn.
I
Second.
Knapp, Guile, and Knapp. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Meeting adjourned.